The film Beyond the Divide. Welcome to the show.
Well, thank you.
Thank you for your service.
And again,
Can you just tell us a little bit about the film and how Jan got in contact with you and just how it's had an impact on your life?
the film, and I'll address it from the perspective of mainly the veteran point of view, but the film itself is a story about a Vietnam veteran who, and the Vietnam veteran community and the peace community finding common ground. Jan actually began working on the film by coming to Missoula to do a movie, a documentary on a peace sign that had been erected. Well, in the years of Vietnam, the peace symbol, the peace sign, and especially the sign on the hill, was very offensive to Vietnam veterans. And so she wanted to get that perspective as well. And she and I sat down and started talking, and I think at that point, the whole movie started morphing into something bigger than just a story about the peace sign going up in the hill. So from my perspective, as a Vietnam veteran, getting the story told, getting the Vietnam veteran story told, is something that's been really important to me since the 70s, and when I first experienced PTSD. So the movie has done that, is another way of doing that, and has done it very well. The production work that they've done. So that's, as a Vietnam veteran, I feel like I've helped to contribute in some way to making the public and whoever watches this movie a little more aware of the Vietnam veterans' problems and the Vietnam veterans' potential.
Right, and I guess I was going to ask that, as someone that wasn't even alive during Vietnam, what is it that you hope the message of the film, what message do you hope reaches someone like me who wasn't even alive at that time?
And I think that point is a really good point. Being a historian, having a history degree, you study history, and history can seem a real boring thing. And one of the things that it really pleased me about this movie is that we're showing it to a lot of young people, and we're not only teaching the history of the Vietnam War, but we're helping these young people understand the feelings, and understand that these people who are a lot older than they are, who were in high school for their age when they actually were sent to war, that they were real people, had real feelings. It's not just a page in a history book of dead people. It's the fact that they understand what it's like to be a veteran, why they need to participate in deciding and helping decide and being involved in decisions as whether we go to war or not, and basically what the veteran does, what the veteran represents when he comes home. And that you can, as young people especially, but also as other veterans, as citizens in general, you can recognize the veteran's service without necessarily approving of the war. That understanding that sometimes we think we have to, and war fever does this to people. We think we have to be totally in favor of pro-war, where there's only two people. There's conscientious objectors and there's warmongers in their eyes, and that doesn't have to be the truth, and that you can honorably serve and yet at the same time be for peace.
Okay, so I know that forgiveness is a big theme of the film. Could you just walk me through that process of, I know as you coming back to the town and seeing the peace symbol, and like how you were able to get over that over all those years?
I think forgiveness is part of the film, but I think the term or the two words that I like, I think even better, are compassion and empathy. And I think that's what the film talks about. And I know when I came back, I very much opposed to the peace sign when it went up on the hill. I was definitely a Vietnam veteran, and I was embarrassed by and angered by all the peace people. And we weren't paying attention to some of the things that some of them were saying, because we saw so much hypocrisy and we saw so much anger in their eyes, and it was directed at us. And at the same time, without knowing it, we were doing it to them. We weren't listening to them. We were talking over them. We weren't accepting the fact that even though we may not agree with them totally, we did have things in common. For example, if you're a veteran, you go to war, you want peace. Any person who's seen war wants peace, and so we had some commonality. For myself, the evolution came. It was a gradual thing. It's not something, as it says in the movie, it's not something that happens overnight. It's not a fast food thing. The evolution for me was over the years, as I plummeted into PTSD problems and Agent Orange related problems. The anger was still there, but little by little, the defensiveness started going away. I watched what the VA did as far as taking care of or not taking care of its Vietnam veterans. Watched what the public did. So little by little, I started realizing that how much we did have in common, and it wasn't one day. The closest thing to one day waking up and saying, "Oh, gee, we have some things in common," but there wasn't one day. But probably the closest thing to a singular day or singular activity was at the time I read the UNICEF report that talked about how many Vietnamese civilians had been killed after the war by American mines, and that was my job in Vietnam, was putting in mines and demolition. And I thought of the kids, and a little friend, a Vietnamese girl that I befriended, who lived in my heart for a lot of years. But she, when I thought of these kids who were stepping on mines, and there was something like 20-some thousand who died in Vietnam. In my mind, I would see this kid. Her name was Dwick. I'd see this little girl, this little Vietnamese girl, and that comes back to bite you. That comes and haunts you. And so I realized at that point that the war wasn't over, and B, peace, genuine peace, is a pretty good idea, and we need to avoid doing this sort of thing to each other.
Right.
And I think war, President Carter said that war is sometimes a necessary evil, but no matter how necessary, it remains an evil. And I really subscribe to that theory. And I believe in honorable service. I believe in serving your country. I think it's a noble thing to serve. Mm-hmm. But I also look for, hope to find a world where we don't go to war, where, much like the Cuban Missile Crisis, when President Kennedy did everything he could to avoid a war, and in the process probably avoided having half the American population blown up, simply because he sought at every angle, everything he could do to avoid war. We need to do that. We need to think that way. War fever, is a dangerous thing. President Wilson talked about what a fearful thing it was to lead a great people into war. Mm-hmm. And it's, so war, when I believe, my father was an Irish rebel in Ireland. I believe there are times that war is what is going to happen, and maybe has to happen. And there are certainly bad people in the world that probably only understand war and the results of war. But by the same token, I think it's important, and I don't think we do this, we have to understand how important it is to try and resolve the conflicts. And that's one of the things I think this movie did. And as it progressed, I started realizing how that Betsy, the Peace Center, was saying many of the same things I was saying, and that together, collectively, we could say them to a lot more people. Mm-hmm. And the other thing I have to admit is that doing this sort of thing is really therapy for me. Mm-hmm. I mean, I have PTSD. I have some issues related to Vietnam, Agent Orange, and others. But doing this movie and talking publicly is a way I help get myself through my problems, and it has been since way back when I first started
Wow.
doing the public radio and some of the other stuff I do. So this movie, you know, as far as how it moved from one point to the other, I think it was evolution. It was the evolution of a person with a lot of anger, being able to not change his way of thinking about what he had done or what his service meant, but understanding that there is a better way, and getting rid of the anger and trying to find the common ground was the better way. And you know, if we do that, we can avoid wars. And you know, I'm not a pacifist per se, but I do believe that anybody who knows war, I mean, who wants to send their kids to die a gory death? I mean, anybody who believes that war is somehow good and glorious and exciting. It is exciting in the sense that your adrenaline is flowing, but it's not exciting in a fun way. It is not a football game, and sometimes we think of it as this big football game, and it's not.
Right.
People die, 19-year-old kids in Vietnam with their intestines hanging out. It is not a fun thing to be part of. So we need to avoid it. In this movie, as the anger started going away, and I realized that there were some common bonds with the peace movement, and then the veteran community could benefit just as the peace community could benefit. So that's, and then I have to also say, Jan coming and making the movie was really an inspiration. It really drew out of me. I had to spend time thinking. She'd set up an interview, and I'd think, okay, what am I going to say?
Right.
And it actually helped because I think it helped me articulate the things I was feeling.
Right.
And so this movie has actually been beneficial to me personally as far as issues I faced.
That's awesome. So last question. We're here at the GI Film Festival. What does a film festival like this mean to you?
Well, you know, in getting the message out, I'm aware, and I've done an amount of media back in Missoula, Montana, but I realize that we can talk to ourselves and we can talk to the wall, but the reality is we need the media. We need to get the message out, and getting it out in a creative way with the film festival, with the films, is you tell the story and people listen. And in the case of the young people, they watch a movie, they want to learn, they can learn that way. And so coming to the film festival, we're looking at people who are both motivated by the cause that we're here for, and at the same time are professional, or somewhat professional at least, in movie making and providing this creative entertainment. So to me, it's like kind of a culmination. It's like this platform, not just for me, but for all the people who come here, this opportunity to use the creative arts to get the story out, to reach more people. And plus, it's a fun place to be and good people to be around. And
yeah.
So,
well, Dan, thank you for talking to me. Thank you for sharing your story.
Well, thank you for